This is Gemara Avodah Zarah Daf Samoch, and we're holding on the bottom of Nuntasa Mebeis, 3 lines from the bottom as we plow through the intricate and quite difficult halachas of Yayin Nesach, understanding the different nuances, the guy touching the wine, b'kavana, shloi b'kavana, the chomras, l'chatzchila, of staying away from the guyish, any interaction, etc. So 3 lines from the bottom continues the Gemara. So another case, there was a cask of wine, the spigot fell out, so some of the wine starts coming out. So guy comes to put his hand on the hole to hold in the wine. All the wine by the spigot, all the wine that potentially would have came out and hit his hand is going to be aser. But the rest of the line is going to be shari. That is the first lashon in Rav Papa. Continues the Gemara, Ikad Yamri, a second way of learning. Amar Rav Papa, Ada Barzach Amr Aser Ve'idach Shari. It's going to be mutter. Now, where does this come from? Amar Rav Yemar Kitanai. This is really a machlekes Tanai. Chavesh shenikva bein mi pia, bein mi shuleo, bein mitzidia. Says the Brisa, a barrel that has a hole, whether it's on the top, the side, the bottom, the halacha is v'naga by tvul yaim, and the tvul yaim touches it tameya, the entire wine of the cask is aser. V'yudamer mipia mishulad tameya, but mitzida it's going to be tahira. Mikanu mikan, the wine on this side and that side of the hole above and below it, it's going to be amar ababa. Excuse me, mitzidia tahira mikan. I read it wrong. Go back. So says the Gemara, our machlekes Tanakama Rabba is going to be the same machlekes. When the Tanakama says, if you touch the wine, the hole is as if it's touching all the wine. And Rabba says, no, the rest of the wine is going to be mutter like the Rav Yehuda, not like the Tanakama. Amar Rabba, another halacha 6 lines down. Akum. Adanavi Yisrael Akuba. If the guy is at the cask pouring the wine, and the Jew is at the jug holding the jug as the wine is being poured into it, Chamra Aser, my time, Kikasi Mikayach Akum Kasi. The guy is pouring out the cask, the Yid is catching it, so it's going Mikayach the guy, so it's Aser. But on the flip side case, Yisrael Adanav Akuba, the Yid is by the cask and the guy is holding the bottom, is going to be shari. Because again, why? Because then the kayak is from the yid and the guy is just catching it. But if the guy in the bottom moves around the jug as the wine comes in, so if he also adds into the kayak, then that will aser up the wine. And the third halach of Rav Papa, Yaakov the Darizika v'Kazil Yisrael Achudei. If a guy is carrying a flask of wine tied shut, and the Yid is walking behind him to see that the flask doesn't open, to make sure that the guy doesn't touch the wine. Malya shari. If the cask is full, the wine is mutter. Delay mikarkesh. Why? Because you can't shake it. A full cask, you can't shake around. There's no room to shake around. Chaseira. But if the cask is lacking, and therefore as you carry it, the wine sloshes around. Aser. Why? Dilma mekarkesh, maybe he shook it. Kuba, if the guy is carrying an open jug of wine, then malye, if it's filled, then aser. Whereas, why? Because Dilma naga, maybe he touched it. Chaseira shari, delay naga. A third halacha of Rav Papa, and this Rav Ashi argues, Rav Ashi Marzika, bein malya, bein chaseira, shari. A leather flask, full or not, it's going to be mutter my taima, ein derech nisach bekach. And as we pointed out many times, that is a very basic yisai, that if something cannot be menasech, it's not the normal way of pouring to Avodah Zarah, that's a unique kula. Obviously, you have to know how to apply it. Says the Gemara, me'atzra zarya, the beam wine press, Rabba Shari Rav Ashi, v'tim Rav Sima Barashi, aser. It's the beam that you put on top of the wine to crush the grapes. So Rav Ashi says, if the guy puts down the beam, it's mutter. Rav Sima Barashi says aser. Explains the Gemara. Ki pligi b'koyach koyach. And the machlekes is that this beam is not directly crushing the grapes. It's koyach, koyach, it's twisted and pushed, and then it turns another beam. That's the machlekes. Ika di'amri, another lashon, the exact opposite. B'koyach chulam le'pligi d'shari. If it's b'koyach koyach, then it's going to be mutter. Ki pligi b'koyach. What's the machlekes? If it's going to be his strength itself. And now says the Gemara story. Avodah Zarah koyach va'aser Rav Yaakov and Har Pakad. Koyach Rav Yaakov and Har Pakad says it is aser, which of course is going like the first lashon that the machlekes is koyach, and he's going to say that it is aser. And another story, there was a cask of wine. So we turn over to Samachamid Beis, the Paka, Lorka, that the cask is split open down its length. And now what happened, the cask starts opening up, and the wine starts spilling out. Idra, Ahu Akam Chavka. What happened? A guy jumped and encircled the cask, holding it together. You can imagine a cask open up, and he's holding it together so it doesn't fall out. Sharye Rav Bar Baba Vitema Ravuna Beir Shula Zavuni La'akum. They said it's not aser, but I know you can sell this wine to a guy. Bahani immediately explains the parkula orke that it split down the side avol lepotye, but if slid across the width afilu b'shtiya shari, then it'll be even mutter b'shtiya. My taima, says the Gemara, my salavina kavid, because the guy is just doing an act like a brick, just holding it together. And one last story before the Mishnah. There was a guy who was found standing by a Yiddish wine press. If there's moisture, that if something touches it, it can make something else wet, then you have to rinse it off and dry it out. And if not, rinsing it off will suffice. And again, this is just going to be able, this is a type of a kashering that's not obviously getting out of blio, but is removing the surface, the superficial wine and whatnot that potentially was on the wine press. Continues the Mishnah on Samach Amabis. Akum shenimsa oimid b'tzara bar shal yain. A guy is found standing next to a Jew's wine cistern. If the guy is alone against the yid, aser. So why the milva will determine the status of the wine, of course, is the topic of discussion. And obviously the reason is we have to be worried that the guy is going to touch the wine. If we look at Rashi for a moment, Rashi explains, it's aser. While if he's yare liga, he's not afraid to touch it. The savar yamrli midi amin alei tenio liba chayvi. I'll tell the yid, you pay me up. You owe me money. But if not, then the guy will be more afraid. Nafal lebar, continues the Mishnah. If a guy falls into a wine cistern, va'ala, and he comes up, midade bekana, or he measures with a reed, het is es atzira bekana, he flicked out a hornet with a reed. Oishaya matveach al pi achaves miru seches, he was tapping on top of a foaming cask. In all these cases, hayamaisa and va'amru yimakir, you're allowed to sell the wine, but you can't drink it. Rav Shimon matir. Rav Shimon came along and he said he can even drink it. Finally, natalas achaves v'zarka. If a guy took a cask and he was angry, v'zarka b'chamasa, and his anger he threw it, labar, zayamaisa v'chshira, and they said the wine is even allowed to be consumed. And we begin the Gemara dealing with the first case of the Mishnah, which is the case if the yid owes the guy money. Amar Shmuel, not stand that he owes him money, but rather he has a lien on that wine. Amar Ravashi, Masizan Amideka, the Tani Hametayr, Yena Shalakum, Vinoislaver Shusav Allah Kaisev La Iskabalti Mimchama Ois. I accept from you the money mutter. Avalim Yertzi Yisrael Laitzia, Vein Manichai. He's not letting him. Ajit Lema Isav Zeh Maisav Bevi Shan. V'asu. So Taima, what's the whole reason over here? Only because they ain't manichai. Ha manichai. But if you allow him to remove the wine, and it's not a mashka shari, shmamina milva al oiso yayin binan shmamina. So what do we see? That the din only applies if the halva of the milva and this wine was the lean. And we continue quoting the next case of the Mishnah, Smakim Lav and Afal Bar Va'al, if the guy falls into the pit of wine. Amar Rabbav Lo Shanal Sha'ala Mace. The din of the Mishnah that you let to get benefit from it is if the guy came out dead. Aval Allah Chai Aser. My timer above the Dami Ale Kiyoim Edom. Cause the day that they rescue the guy from the cistern of wine is like a festival day for them. And we could assume that he was so excited he got it alive that he poured the wine as a libation, and therefore it's Aser Behana. Madu Bekana Kolelo Yamaisami Makar V'Shem Mater. Amar Avodah Zarah explains Avodah Zarah. Yonichol Rav Shimon Barachos Al Rosh, blessing should be on the head of Rav Shimon. Kshehu Matir Afilu B'Shtiyok Kshehu Aiser Aser Afilu Mano. Amar Chiv Reider Rav Ava Nachmeni Amar Chisda Amar Rav Amar Chisda Amar Ziri. Halacha ki Rav Shimon, extremes in both ways. It's mutter B'Shtiyok, it's also V'Hana. Yikadiyami Amar Chisda Amar Li Abba Bar Chanan Hachi Amar Ziri Halacha ki Rav Shimon, but the Ein Halacha ki Rav Shimon, so Machlekes with the Ma'is, we follow Rav Shimon. Pick it up from the two dots in Mirza Hashem.